AgencySavvy.
Yeah, great idea.
This link.
Amazing. Yeah, we can talk about, and the beautiful thing is we can talk about e-com and we can talk about agency as well, because I was plugging the AgencySavvy part.
Man. And little known fact. You go.
There's a rooster in my backyard. It makes a lot of noise. So
you say it's a rooster. No one's ever seen this rooster.
I wonder if that rooster sounds like my kids, because they're probably going to go off in the background as well.
Oh yeah, that'll happen too. Yeah, no, we had 2 roosters, and then on Saturday we got one less. So yeah,
the machete.
Sorry for that. It was a hatchet. It was.
Yeah, right. Okay. We'll see if the fit out guys upstairs start drilling again 5 minutes into this. I may have to mute myself occasionally.
Are you in the new office?
Yeah. Brand new office. Awesome.
Beautiful.
It's huge. The guys kind of rescued all the plants a couple of weeks ago and took all of them home to various places. And
nice.
Yeah, I'm here by myself. I'm lucky though. At least I can get out of the house. It's, with little ones. My daughter's 6th birthday today, so
yeah,
came in late this morning, but I'll be going home early this afternoon.
I haven't left the house for 3 weeks nearly.
Wow.
So I've got a 4.5 and a 2.5-year-old in the background just wanting to burst through the door. It is, it's definitely a challenge.
It certainly is, but how lucky are we to be able to keep running a business in that situation from there?
Yeah.
And look after them.
There's not too much that's changed for us, I guess. We've got the fixed office up in Brisbane and Adelaide, but for the rest of us, we're remote anyway. So we're pretty used to doing the whole work by Zoom sort of part of it. But it's hard because I like getting out of the house just to break that work and life part up. So that's definitely a bit of a challenge. So that's been an interesting few weeks. How are you going, Trevor? Because you got little ones as well, right?
Yeah. I'm actually really fortunate. Sorry, I'm just trying to share things in my internet's.
Yeah, you're good.
He's got a separate place downstairs with a door, so that he's able to sort of. When we jump on a team Zoom, you can just you can hear them scraping at the door on the other side. Little known fact, but I don't know where you can bring this up. Like somebody other than Trevor needs to bring this up. He actually did anthropology at university, and I reckon that could be a very interesting point of view around now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because humans are behaving freaking weird right now.
Yeah. Also, a really interesting fact that since doing my anthropology degree, I've made absolutely $0 because of it.
That's like every degree, isn't it?
Yeah. Get your foot in the door somewhere. But I suppose anthropology probably didn't get your foot in the door in Facebook advertising.
It stood out on the CV.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean,
nice.
Anthropology, and then writing scripts for radio.
Yeah. Well, that part. Yeah, definitely.
Backcountry BC. It's like, this looks interesting. Then he came in and blew the interview. But yeah.
Did I blow the interview?
No, you did not.
It's all coming out.
It's by far the best candidate we got.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right, we got a few people joining us live already. Hey, everyone, if you can see us, you can hear us, do me a favor and just give us the fire emoji in the chat just so that I can have everything put together. We've got 13 people. And also so we're about to kick off in a few minutes. And when we do, or even now, start tagging your friends. We're going to have a really vibrant discussion today. I've got 3 really great minds with me discussing a whole bunch of response strategies and all that good stuff, and also just insights into what's happening right now. We got the, hey Heidi, what's going on? You got the boxing glove emoji. Beautiful. This chat thing's amazing. Oh, so good.
I can't
literally it's one app streaming out everywhere. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, right. So I have to teach you this digital stuff one day, D.
I hear it's the next big thing.
Are you the same as me, Mike? Because I'm terrible on the tech side. I'm really bad.
I'm pretty good at most things, but then there's this line. There's a clip. Like I'm good at AI, and I'm good at this stuff, and then there's like, what's Snapchat?
Yeah. The basic stuff trips me up. There's some inside jokes about me and Excel.
I'm pretty good with Excel.
I'm good with like the more complicated stuff, and then I'll be screen sharing, and people will be watching me doing some basic stuff and just laughing.
You're like, piece of cake. Sorry.
If anyone watching this wants to hear about Scott the Tech Tard, tag your friends too. If you want, we will have a instead of a TED Talk, it'd be a Tech Tard Talk. That's a mouthful. Try saying that 10 times fast. Amazing. 28 people across all channels already. We're streaming on YouTube Live. We've got on the Growth and Greatness Facebook page as well, and I'm on Periscope. Remember that thing? We're streaming on Periscope too. So wherever you guys want to tag your friends, tag your industry peers, this is the place. We've got 2 more minutes. So everyone, again, if you're joining us right now, you can see us, you can hear us. Just give us a fire emoji or any emoji you wish to put in there, just to let us know that you can see us and hear us. Yeah, an emoji for the times. Trevor can use the rooster emoji for that supposed alleged rooster in the background.
Oh, he'll make an appearance.
Yeah, for sure.
Thinking about getting chickens.
Yeah, aren't they all sold out now?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. That or guinea fowl, because we've got snakes and stuff, and the guinea fowl are meant to be good to keep the snakes away.
The chicken aisle in Kohl's is just slammed. Just panic buying chickens.
Panic buying.
All right, we got 1 more minute, and then we're gonna kick off. This is gonna be a really, really good episode. I'm super pumped about this one.
Yeah, Scott, I've heard about guinea fowl are really, really noisy. So they like to sing in the morning and the evenings, and they like to sing early.
Noisy as hell and protective. Yeah. Really meant to be really territorial, but like protective like a dog. So they'll go after people if they're coming to the house and things like that. But if you don't like them, apparently very tasty as well. Sorry to the vegans.
He's not sorry. He says he's sorry, but he's not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
All right, here we go. 9:30. Okay, we are kicking off episode 2 of the Growth and Greatness Show. I am, again, so grateful to have these smart minds surrounding me right now. I'll introduce them one by one. First, we'll start with good old Mike. Mike is the founder, effectively, of CEO and founder of WebSavvy and AgencySavvy. He is literally the guy that wrote the book about Google Ads, a trusted advisor to many in terms of Google Ads. He also teaches hundreds of agencies in terms of improving what they do through AgencySavvy, which is the place where he teaches, both the technical side of how to do Google Ads better and also how to scale their agencies and coaching them through that as well. And then we got Trevor over there. Trevor is, he heads up the Facebook department as well as heads up the client strategy for WebSavvy. Started Facebook ads in 2014. Back then helped Aussie online legend Showpo move internationally. Now currently working with brands like Frank Green, Adore Beauty on the e-commerce Facebook ad side. Also a speaker as well. I actually got to share the stage with them at the recent Digital Marketers Australia conference over in Melbourne before this whole thing went absolutely wacky not that long ago. And then I've got my co-founder Scott with me as well. Scott's been with me since the very beginning, and we're going to share a bunch of insights in terms of the past few weeks and also what's currently happening, what the solutions are with what we're seeing out there in the market, both within the industry as well as with the trends that we're seeing and patterns across our clients. And then finally, we're going to move into what we believe is going to start happening next. And while we're looking at what we're talking through in the last 15 to 10 minutes, we'll open it up to questions. So if you have any questions, please post them in the comments. I'll jump back into the comments once we get to the Q&A portion, and then we can start answering some of your questions. So for anyone that is watching live, please put your comments into your questions into the comments. And if you have friends that you know are going to have questions, tag them now, let them know what the deal is, and we can get the questions answered at the very end as well. Okay, housekeeping done. Let's move on into the great content. I love the housekeeping. It's like bathrooms are here, exits are there. Please do not panic. Leave in a timely manner. Don't have to deal with any of that now because we're virtual. This current situation is really forcing us to behave in a way that we're very unused to, especially in the West, right? The liberties that we took for granted are now very, very different. People's lives and livelihoods are getting affected in very, very big ways. I'll open it up to any of you. What are you seeing now in terms of whether it is within your accounts, whether it is industry-wide, speaking to your peers? What's been the fundamental shift in the past? Let's call it 1 week, and then 2 weeks, and then 1 month, if you want to draw a bit of a juxtaposition there.
I'll sort of jump in here. One of the big things that we've seen client side, and I think it's also beyond, is this shift to honesty, which is strange. But everybody is communicating a ton, and everybody's being really, really honest with each other. And I think that, I mean, it's something that WebSavvy's done for a while, and I think a lot of businesses have, but it's just sort of increased layers of transparency. This is what we're dealing with. This is how, this is how our staff feel. This is, all this sort of stuff that maybe you wouldn't share normally, but there's this sort of wild appreciation of just sort of telling it like it is, and appreciating everybody else. So it's sort of probably, it started that way, and it's only increased. I think you see a lot of emails. I think every business is sent a COVID-19 email, but it's often sharing more than they normally would. So I think that's kind of the shift that has been happening. I think businesses are being more honest with employees. They're talking about, this is sort of the numbers that we've got. This is why you maybe should be concerned. This is maybe you don't have to worry just yet. And I think that's the biggest shift that I've seen across everything. But it's kind of nice, but it's also not necessarily that great because of why it's necessary. So, but I'd say that's the biggest thing that we've seen. And I'll like having some conversations with Facebook and sort of their high value programs and things like that. They're also sharing that, which is pretty good. Our agency rep is being really, really open and frankly oversharing. So I've got way too much stuff to read from her, but it's yeah, definitely. I think that's probably the biggest trend I've seen that's going on, and it's good to see.
Yeah, Mike, what are your thoughts there?
I think Trevor's covered that beautifully. I think that's exactly right. People are. It's heartening, isn't it? Like to see that people are coming together, and for the huge, vast majority, doing the right thing. People are being kinder than usual and more thoughtful, and it's just, it gives you a little bit of hope. Like normalization too. Like I'm amazed at how quickly we're getting used to this new normal, and this could go on for quite a while, right? We could be in some form of lockdown for months, and all the parents are like, "Oh no!" But we adapt, right? That's Charles Darwin's thing. That's why we're supposedly in charge of this planet. It's because we adapted fastest. It's not because we're fastest or strongest or anything. It's because we adapt really quickly. Humans are really, really good at that, and there's been some pretty amazing, the vast majority of the world, pretty amazing feats of humanity happening, which is just lovely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely echo those sentiments as well. Yeah, I think for us, particularly with the employees, because I think, well, not just particularly, but it's with them first, with us, because everyone's just concerned. There's so much uncertainty right now. Everyone's concerned whether they've got a job, what's going to be happening in the next month, is their business that they're working for set up to be able to, people, we've seen so many people in the industry around us and other industries that are, losing jobs. So, we started on that path earlier in the year when we had our first team summit. And a big part of that for us was improving that transparency between us and the rest of the team, and then giving them more insight into the vision, where we're at as a company. And this has kind of forced us to really build on that as well. The over communication with the team, making sure they're across what's going on, but the buy-in from everyone as well, like what you're saying, Mike, like everyone, there's that feeling it's really tying everyone together because everyone knows we're all in the same boat. We're all just, everyone's trying to scrap to survive a little bit at the moment, because we're not necessarily survive, but make sure that we get through this in the best possible way we can.
I'm so proud of my team right now. They have been utterly amazing. I was actually away 2 weeks ago when they said, right, we're going early. We're starting to work from home. Yeah, pretty early on the curve. That was like early mid-March, 2-3 weeks ago, which is really, and yeah, cleared out the office. There's a bunch of screens gone. This is our brand new shiny office that we've just moved in, but a bunch of screens gone and chairs gone. All the plants have been taken home to be looked after, and the fridge has been emptied, and just everything just worked. And yeah, the way everybody is looking after each other, like we're doing daily catch-ups, which I would highly recommend to other teams as well. I have scheduled daily catch-ups on Zoom. Some people like leaving webcams on. I don't know if our team are doing this, but I've heard of other teams doing this, like leaving webcams on during the day, just so you can sort of just check in and, oh, hi, and say good day. And we had a virtual drinks on Friday night with the vast majority of the team jumped on for that. We were wearing silly wigs, and Trevor had a tie on. I mean, unheard of things. But it was lovely just to all catch up like that.
Tie and a rooster.
Yeah.
The rooster's actually right on the deck. He's about to go. I'll echo that. Like the team check-ins, like we've got a couple that we go through every day, and it is really interesting. It's everybody kind of comes in kind of flat, and because they've rolled out of bed and they've made the 4 or 5 foot walk to their desk, and they haven't seen much change. And everybody kind of comes in flat, and we don't really do a lot of talk about work in that thing, but it is just having a chance to talk to somebody who's not in your own living space. And at the end of those things, and sometimes they're just 5 minutes to 10 minutes, but everybody is just up a couple notches, and you can kind of, and I am too, it's not something that, it's not hard, but you just realize how much you need that kind of silly interaction just to kind of, take your head out of the headspace for a bit and share some thoughts and ideas. It's really important. Everybody's morale just picks up a bit. And I think that's so important, especially as we're in week 3 of working from home, and it's probably at the hardest point. It's still adapting to the routine, but yeah, it's really important.
Absolutely. It's a very interesting phenomenon, which I spoke about with the team, but then also in some other videos. What humans, I guess especially humans in the West, what we're experiencing right now is essentially what society decided is as close to the best way to punish you as possible, which is leaving you away from society and from liberties. So, but this is out of necessity. So people are reacting in very different ways. For all intents and purposes, it's as close to house arrest as you can get, depending on the level of the response strategy that your government is putting in place. So, over in the US, they've got shelter in place orders, and people are losing their minds in different ways. Now, I know we have a lot of e-commerce brand owners that would be watching this. What are you seeing out there in terms of consumer behavior, in terms of what brands are thriving, what brands are struggling? Would really love to shift gears, look at that portion.
Sure, I can kind of kick off. So when this all kind of started, it was pretty hard because we have a bunch of clients that have retail space, and they were absolutely just annihilated. So basically we lost those clients. They just couldn't afford to keep going. There's potentially an argument where you really shouldn't be investing in online, but they're looking at laying off tons and tons of people. And so some of those realities kind of hit home, and it's pretty tough. So those guys we've actually sort of worked out a bit of a package that will kind of help them when it comes to, if they need to run a promo, sure, we'll help you out. We'll make sure that it's working. Just because as an agency, we need to keep those clients, and we need to make sure that we can do what we can to make sure that they stay afloat as a business. They're going to be changed forever. But yeah, those were the ones that were hit hardest. on a different side, we actually have a company that is a subscription meat service, and they've shut off ads because they can't supply the demand. So it's totally the opposite end of the spectrum, and we've sort of seen everything in between. The ones that seem to be doing really well, in our case, we've got a sort of eco-friendly homewares. So they've got lots of it's no plastic, all this kind of stuff, and they seem to be just ramping along. Especially now, they've introduced a self-care range and sort of like a cleaning range where there's no plastic involved, there's no disposable stuff, everything is good for the environment, and that seems to have almost stayed constant. So they've been doing really well, and they continue to do well. And the other space that we're seeing just maintain and actually improve on is in makeup and self-care. So there's a lot of people are on calls like this and not doing what I did, which was make themselves look good before the call. So yeah, there's a lot of that sort of interest in self-care and that kind of thing. And I think that those areas where you can sort of satisfy that sort of home life or small self-care to make yourself feel like you're not stuck at home seem to be doing quite well.
Yeah, anything for the kids, anything for home. Oh, sorry, the audio cut out. Yeah, anything for the kids, like board games, colouring stuff, anything for home improvement. Bunnings, the line around Bunnings the other day was insane. Stand-up desks, webcams, headsets, all that stuff. The skincare one surprised me a bit until, yes, Trevor pointed out, well, everybody's on Zoom. So if they want to look good, and people want to feel good too. They want to feel good about themselves, even if it's just that little $40 purchase that just, then I'm waiting for a package and I get this little hit of dopamine. And I'm surprised, but I'm not really much of a consumer, but I'm surprised how much people are still buying through this, like the non-essentials. And then, yeah, I'd like every agency out there, we've seen, as Trevor said, we've seen people that need to ramp down, that need to pause everything right now because the government's told me that I must shut the doors today and we won't be able to open until the end of May. Certainly some of our American clients are in that situation. And so it goes back to what we said at the beginning, being kind, being transparent, having those conversations, having some empathy and not saying, well, yes, if you want to do that, then you need to sign this thing and pay this invoice and then we'll do this. It's like, yeah, you're in trouble too. I get it. We're a small business too. I mean, obviously, income would be nice, but they're really struggling. So just, you do the right thing. I would, I don't know if to go there, but there are agencies that lock people into really horrible contracts and businesses have maybe not been happy with those contracts in the past. Now's the time to go look at your contract and see if there's a force majeure clause in there and get out of that contract if your agency's being a douche and not allowing you to do the right thing. Have a look at it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Everyone, and we've seen very similar, and it's not like you can say this vertical is working. It's often very sub-niche, brand to brand. We've got multiple women's fashion clients. Some have been absolutely hammered. Some are thriving. It's really interesting and I'd say it's the stronger brands that are really still pushing through that are doing really well. The agency side, we've let anyone pause who's come to us and asked without any question. I think at this time everyone's in the same boat. We understand, look, that hits us, but this is outside their control. We've had people in fashion and, in travel related products who have also got brick and mortar stores and they've lost, up to 80% of revenue in a couple of weeks. So what can you do? We're not going to hold them to something in those sort of situations. The consumer behavior part's interesting, Mike, because I look at what I've done in the last 3 weeks since being home. Bought a nice new office chair, bought an espresso machine, and here's that moment. Here's the hijacking moment. My daughter's decided to jump in here. But yeah, the consumer behavior part is interesting, just looking at my own behavior as well. And there is still those home comfort items that you're trying to buy. So yeah, it definitely hasn't soaked up. And then, we've definitely got some niches that have just started booming, and more the luxury type products, leather goods of all things, has been really strong. Jewelry has still been really, really strong, surprisingly. So it's so case by case at the moment. It's really hard to say this or that. So I think it's just a matter of testing.
It is one of those times where I'm glad that as an agency we didn't niche too hard. And you know, I've got a friend of a friend who's that all he does is affiliate stuff for cruise liners. He's hurting.
Ouch.
That's got to be painful. That's got to be, you know, we were concerned about that at the start, just being e-com, not knowing, because there's two sides that we're getting hit by here, right? It's one, we don't know what performance is going to be like, but then if performance is all right, whether they're going to be getting hit on the logistical and supply chain side.
Exactly.
And one of our bigger US clients, their 3PL is located in California, complete lockdown, had to shut everything off, and they were performing exceptionally well before that. So there's multiple things at play that we're trying to navigate and keep things sort of flowing.
And people are handling that really differently too. Some are having big sales and trying to get the warehouse down, get rid of all of that inventory, get as much cash in as they can, which is one strategy. Others are ordering as much new stock as they can while they can get it, while there is any stock on hand in China, to get it out of there as quickly as possible, because they want to know that they can then trade that over the next few weeks and months. So yeah, it is such a mixed bag.
Yeah, we've got one client that's basically getting rid of all of their like secondary stock. So anything that wasn't quite good enough to sell, they're just marking it down at 50%. And their CEO is looking at, like, we're looking at the next little while when either A, we can't ship anything, or we're not going to get any sales because we're a discretionary product. So we're just doing this massive sale now, and they've probably put in about 45 days of revenue in the last 4 or 5 days. So just by getting rid of all this stuff. So for them, it's stock that they maybe would have written off or not had. And now they've been able to find a market for it. And people, when we set it up, we thought, oh, God, I hope this works, and it has. So it's really fortunate. But just people are getting creative from that kind of stuff. We've got another client that just moved warehouses and found some outdated stock for a tech piece that still actually works. So they're going to be launching that and selling that when they can, because they couldn't get things made in China. So everybody's kind of going through these things that now they kind of have the bandwidth to deal with these little things that would be too hard basket otherwise. But it is interesting to see how everybody's innovating.
I think we're encouraging. We've been encouraging that move as well. I mean, to me, it's win-win, right?
Yeah.
If you can push as much volume as you can now, it saves you from having that dead capital lying on your warehouse floor. You've got that cash in the bank. And if things don't get worse and things keep open, you've almost set a new bar for yourself from a revenue standpoint. Go, okay, this is what we can actually do. Can we get stock keep coming in and maintain this? So I think there's not really a bad outcome of that. If worse comes to worse and things get locked down, then yeah.
As long as it's done in context, that's where I'm seeing bad outcomes. I'm seeing those brands that are completely tone deaf, and it's like they've just wound up the same old, but they've just wound it up harder, and they're sending emails to people they've never sent emails before, and they're just hitting sales messages but with no relevancy, with no context. That's what we've been advising people on, clients and AgencySavvy members, and just through other education that we're putting out there. But just like check all of your automations, check your drip campaigns, check the messaging, make sure that is contextually relevant, check all of your automated bidding, because the machine is confused right now. This is unusual behavior, and machines don't do well when past data is completely different to current data. So absolutely reverting back to manual on the marketing side.
It's a very interesting phenomenon that I'm seeing amongst entrepreneurs and founders and brand owners and business owners in general as well. You have this camp that, and speaking to not only our Facebook rep in Singapore, but then also a lot of the startup mentors around town here in Brisbane and a few peers internationally, the theme seems to be the same. And love to hear whether you guys are seeing the same thing as well. The theme being, you have those that are bracing for the worst and effectively trying to plan as far ahead as possible, understanding that these are uncertain times and you can't really see above a very short horizon, which is tomorrow, next week. So they're trying to do that, and they're going, how do we get opportunistic and how do we brace ourselves? And they kind of flip flop between the two. I'm stuck there as well. I was ranting about that last episode with our previous guests. It's very exhausting. And then you have the other camp, which seemed to be, two other camps. One that seemed to be absolutely frozen in their steps as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as founders, to go, I don't know what to do because prior, all I did was just map my competitors. So whatever they did, I would just have to follow. So I've really never had to be much of an innovator as much as just a half step laggard. And now that if they're not doing anything and I can't find reference points, I have nothing to reference. So my default mode is to just freeze. And that seems to be the majority, especially speaking to startup mentors here in Brisbane. The feedback they're giving me is a lot of the early stage founders are just frozen in their step, not knowing what to do next. And then you've got that final third camp, which are just knee-jerk reaction founders. It's almost like they hear, it's in that, in the movie when an explosion goes off or a fire goes off, they're the ones that's frantically looking around, trying to find someone, and then they just start yelling things. Let's just start moving everything. Let's just buy everything. Let's just try this. Let's just try that. And it's very uncoordinated efforts that then I think manifests in the, what you were talking about, Mike, in the tone deaf messaging, in the fire sales at any cost whatsoever. And you can almost see the desperation in the creative, in the copy, in the messaging, and in the slant. And as we know, as marketers, consumers and people on the receiving end can smell desperation so easily. And when it's off tone, especially in this day and age, I'm sure all of you saw the Gal Gadot and her celebrity friends singing Imagine. Wow. Okay. So Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, who played Wonder Woman, she rallied all of her celebrity friends to take selfies when they were, poor them, quarantined at home, to sing Imagine. Each celebrity would sing a line, right? And there's one line that goes, "Imagine having no possessions." And it's just ironic seeing a celebrity, and I think Gal got that line, and in the background is their mansion. So the internet just took that chance to just slime it, absolutely just slime it, right? And meanwhile, you've got, I've been looking at the social of ASOS and ASOS men, and they are playing a very, very, very fine-tuned game. I really like the simplicity of how they're still moving product, but at the same time, the humor and their organic to go, these are the funny memes that got us got us through this week. So it's not my content as ASOS. I'm just saying, we're just saying we found these funny things that other people made. So there is still that degree of separation, but it still adds flavor to the brand. It still delights people. So there are some brands that are doing it really, really well, and some other brands that are just going hell for leather, knee jerk. Are you guys seeing the same thing on in your circles and with the research that you guys are doing?
Yeah, it's an absolute masterclass, both in marketing, but just in leadership in general. I think like you just see so many screwing it up so bad. I was chatting to a friend in Tassie the other day, and similar to what you're saying, like a tone deaf leadership at top, but not from a consumer point of view, but from a team point of view in there. They have all completely lost faith in the leader of this business. They all know in there that they're going to be looking for new jobs, whether the business survives or not. They're like, I don't want to be working for someone like this anymore, because that complete sort of knee-jerk reaction, run around like a headless sorry, Trevor. You shouldn't talk about headless chickens around Trevor. It's a sore point. That's got them really worried. Like, who am I working for? I guess it's that old line of, your character doesn't come out in good times, it comes out in bad times. And a lot of brands, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of just people's in general character is being revealed writ large. And I don't know if it's the majority or not. I mean, the majority of people I speak to are in that first camp, and they've got their heads screwed on straight. And my coach gave me this years ago that really helped me, so I'll try and describe it. But you picture the infinity symbol. I tend to spend a lot of time in the future, and every now and again I come back and dip my toe in the present and see what's going on, and then I go back over to the future again. And right now I'm trying to switch that So I'm trying to spend a lot more time in the present, but keeping an eye on the future and keep dipping into that, but then come back and spend time in the present, go over dip in the future, because I agree. I don't think we can plan much past the end of next week. I've got some big ideas for how to essentially, bits of the agency that I want to rebuild from the ground up. And this may give us the time and the space to do that, but that is not my focus. That's a a half day a week kind of amount of time to sit and ponder and think about that. But then it's like, okay, decisions need to be made, triage needs to be done, cash position, looking at the trends, looking at the data, and just supporting the team.
I've got a bit of a question on that. Has this experience and what we're going through at the moment changed your perspective or opened your eyes to areas of the agency that you wish you'd structured differently or done differently?
Yes, inevitably. I think, we brought in, the software that is the brain of our agency, we brought in 7 years ago or so when there were 4 of us in the agency. And then we sort of, Band-Aid on Band-Aid on Band-Aid. It's always something more important to do than go fix that stuff. Nick Sonnenberg from Get Leverage calls it operational debt. Like, now's the time to pay down some of that operational debt to get around to those important but not urgent things that will make such a difference going forward. Every business, you have a growth period, and then you sort of bump up against the ceiling of complexity, and then you simplify some things, and then you grow again, and you bump up against a new ceiling. And I can definitely see where that we're sort of at one of those stages right now. And everything willing, we'll come out the other side of this, and I can see how we can be stronger, how we can look after clients even better, how I can support the team even better. There's definitely positives there, but that, like I say, it's not my main focus. I want to go and spend more time thinking about that, but right now I've got to stay rooted in the present.
Yeah, I'll to deep question. We're seeing that same kind of thing. Like, most people sort of have that 3 reaction under a crisis is to fight, flight, or freeze. And so there's, and I think a lot of it is how, luckily we don't have too many people that are freezing, maybe a couple. Some people are running, but not too many. And I think the interesting part is the fighting thing. It's kind of like you say, it's like, how do you fight? Like, are you somebody who is just basically, scrapping with your eyes closed and swinging your fists? Or are you, are you opening your eyes and trying to think? And so that's sort of what I'm sure most agencies are doing now, is you're looking at 3-day data, maybe, because you don't know. And you're just sort of trying your hardest to figure out trends and like, grasping at whatever you can to sort of see it. And I think potentially the digital marketing world is in a really interesting space to sort of look at behavior, how people are behaving online, because it's often it's totally different what they say. We can look at through Google, you can see search results and impression share for brands and things like that. So you can actually see what are people doing. Facebook has been pretty transparent that they're actually opening up servers now because they've got more demand than ever, even though advertising spend is down. So, where, if you're a Facebook marketer, you hear, cheaper CPMs and go for it. So yeah, it is interesting to sort of see all these different trends that we can see through our own platforms and across a few different verticals and things like that. But yeah, there's definitely been lots of people doing knee-jerk reactions and some much more considered results. And I'm desperately trying to think about and not spend too much time on this, like Mike says, but like, what's going to happen when these restrictions end? Because I think these restrictions are going to end at a bunch of different times for a bunch of different people. Australia and New Zealand are in a relatively good place at the moment. But what happens to, say, the travel industry when you can travel back and forth between New Zealand but nowhere else? Like, what does that look like? What does shipping look like in that world where there's vast parts of the world that are walled off effectively? How does this all work? It's and what is the behavior of people that have been isolated for a while? How do they behave when they're allowed to go out and hang out with their neighbors or go to an event? What are they going to do with their wallets? It's I don't know. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, the discretionary spending part of that's the interesting. You know, even when we're talking about whatever assistance we're getting from government, banking, loans, they're talking about putting a pause on things, but then they're ending up with a lump sum payment down the road at the end of the year. So I don't see it as you know, things just coming back to normal in the next 2 or 3 months. I think it's the 6 months after that when everyone's trying to play catch up and get across their debts, both businesses and individuals, that I really see the discretionary spending thing being a 12-month thing that's going to come back. I just don't see it, because there's just going to be so much debt to be repaid at the end of this year. If that's the time period we're sort of, you know, in my mind, we hope that we've got things back and largely opened up. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting period, I think.
Well, here's the question, though.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Trevor, and then I'll ask the question.
Well, so I'm going to steal this idea right from Mike, so he can't say it. Is that, like, now that everybody's working from home, how does that change people's work behavior? You know, do we have to go into the office every day? I've got 3 children, so yes, I'd like to. I'd like to go to the office all the time. But like, how does that shift from businesses that maybe were really resistant to remote working? How does that reshape the economics around that? What is the buying behavior that there's many kiosks and train stations, you know, like it'll be really interesting to see what actually trickles down.
Totally. I think I know you're trying to get a question in there, but just very, very quickly on that. One is, like, we need to question all assumptions. Like, so many of these corporates before said it would be impossible for our workforce to work from home. And now they're having to do it and going, oh, actually, I worry about that, though. I worry about how many white collar jobs will disappear under the cloud cover that this gives those boards and CEOs to get away with making some maybe not so great decisions that they've wanted to do for a while but haven't been able to, and this gives them cloud cover. And there was another point that I've completely forgotten, so never mind.
When it circles back, make sure we throw it back in. It's funny. Patrick Eckstein from last week's episode, he called it the cousin killer. Oh, you know, my cousin, he kind of just works for me. He just does a few things around the block. And then people start looking at the books now and going, wait, what does their cousin actually do again? Sorry, I don't know if he's really got the merit to start sticking around. I totally agree in that regard. It's Peter Thiel speaking about the leadership thing and the fact that right now the moment really calls for strong leadership. And your infinity symbol, I think Peter Thiel is the one that talks about it, the wartime CEO versus peacetime CEO. And this situation is really calling for wartime CEOs, where it's not about building infrastructure in lush greenery and whatever it might be from a company infrastructure standpoint. It really is being present and in the moment and reacting to existing scenarios, but also playing chess almost in a 2-3 steps ahead, because you can't see 3 to 5 steps ahead or 4 to 6 steps ahead. So in that regard, it's definitely really interesting times. How do you, and it's so funny. This was a question I was going to ask. When this whole thing kicked off in our minds, almost in a split second, as key people within small businesses, we almost had we need to brace for some vision of what bad looks like. We're now 2-3 weeks into the phenomenon, especially here in Australia, I guess, and more so in the West. Is it as bad as what your mental picture thought it was going to be? The only reason why I ask is because if we're trying to look ahead, like Scott was saying, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, the ramifications, I'm just trying to get a gauge on how well we were able to lick our finger and actually put it on that spot, or do you see, hey, we're actually in a much better position than we envisioned it was going to be?
I love being right, so I'll go first here.
Great.
It is so completely different depending on which part of the world you talk about. Australia isn't as bad. And look, I'm not going to get into politics at all, but I do think that the packages, I'm not going to talk about the way it's been done, but the packages that have rolled out, particularly the JobKeeper package, is a really, really smart way to handle this, to put the paperwork onus on us as employers, rather than have queues around the block at Centrelink, and make sure that as many businesses as possible continue to employ as many people as possible so people can pay rent and food. Like that basic level of safety, I think that's actually been really well handled. So in Australia, I think we're in a better place than I thought we would be, but my wife's Italian, and I am really, really glad we're not in Italy right now. That's horrendous. And I think America gets a hell of a lot worse from here. That's the one that scares me, because we've been buying toilet paper, they've been buying guns.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that was why I was trying to ask that question, because what I'm going through, I guess this is a bit of just me reaching out for personal peer support. At any moment, I could be within a half hour, and whatever news comes out on my phone, I could be right or wrong. In my opinion, I was right. No, wait, I was wrong. Wait a second. Where am I? Where are we? Which really showcases how volatile and tumultuous everything is. So from a brand standpoint, let's go back there for a minute. What are the solutions that you guys are putting in place? Now, actually, before we go into that, I'd love to hear, in terms of what's happening right now, what are you? I don't know if you guys are doing a lot of research into that. I'm sure you are, but on the Google side, in terms of intent, I'm sure search terms are completely just changed. Absolutely. So, are there any insights there that you can share with our viewers?
Again, it's a really mixed bag across the board. The nice thing about Google is this is where it's so different from Facebook. You guys are all experts in, and I know very, very little about. You offer it some money, it's going to take your money. With Google, if people aren't searching, you're just not going to spend the money. So you can leave, for the most part, if there are some, precautionary measures around this, but you can, for the most part, leave campaigns running, leave bids and even budgets in place. I wouldn't recommend it right now, but you can. And if the demand isn't there, you're just not going to spend very much. The same on the remarketing side. You've got less traffic coming through the site right now. Your audiences are shrinking. You should be thinking about the messaging in those ads, but you just will not be showing as many ads because the audiences are smaller. So there's a lot less to be worried about, I guess, in a way, there. In some markets, like Trevor alluded to a couple of clients before, that are just super busy right now, never been busier. Now they've had to turn ads off because they just can't keep up with demand. And then there are other industries that are just completely flatlined. YouTube, you've got a lot of people obviously on YouTube right now, but are they in buying mode? Some are, some aren't. Again, like, the messaging is the most important thing there, but both of you guys said that on stage at Stephen's event. What was that, like 4 weeks ago or something? 5 weeks ago? It seems like a good
6 years.
lifetime.
6 years now. Yeah.
6 years in Corona time, right? Yeah.
6 years worth of wrinkles and gray hairs and stuff like that.
But you both said it. Like, creative is everything. So yes, there's some really cheap traffic to be had across the board right now. But one, it's got to be contextually relevant, and yeah, just because it's cheap, as we all know, doesn't mean it's good.
Are you seeing any on the Google side? Obviously, the search traffic is probably shifting a lot, but what about the conversion rates associated with them? Are you seeing
across the board
differences there, or is it's just all over the place as well?
It is all over the place. I mean, I'd say if you held a gun to my head and said across the board, what's the average? I'd say probably down 7-8% from the numbers I've looked at. And obviously CPAs are therefore up a smidgen, but everything's different. Every industry is different, for sure. He's doing clips live. Are you doing editing live here, Dean?
I am. I'm trying to do 6 things at once. That's what happens when it's live.
I'll just go back to the question before that, the forecast, and I'm pretty similar to Mike. I think it's Australia hasn't been as my concern was, and I agree with this, that not to get political again as well, but the stimulus side I think has been done well, because my biggest concern was what we were seeing at the very start, going back 2 weeks, just within a couple of days was people talking about losing jobs. It's all I saw in my feed, like left, right, and center. Yeah. My concern from there was, if we don't stem that, business is gone, debt's gone, complete financial collapse. like that was the domino effect that I was sort of thinking in my head was the worst case scenario. But it seems like we're doing the best we can in Australia, and US is obviously pumping a lot of money into the system as well to stem that bleeding. But that was like the worst case, and I don't feel like we're going down that path now. But at the same time, I feel like and I asked the team yesterday, we had a full team call yesterday with the whole company, with all the US guys, and I asked them what their sentiment was on the ground, because I also feel like I'm a little bit detached. I'm in the Adelaide Hills and haven't left the house for 3 weeks and haven't been speaking to people outside of my little bubble with our team, really. So it's hard to, apart from my Facebook feed, I've got really nothing to benchmark what the sentiment is out there. So it was interesting asking them yesterday sort of where the US is at, and they were saying that they feel like it's kind of that shift between people being a bit nonchalant about it and now understanding that this is some really serious shit. Whereas I don't know, Australia, we just haven't seemed to be hit quite as hard yet. Whether that's still coming in terms of things escalating, I don't know.
I read this amazing article by a couple that were Aussies that were living in New York with a young family. And then they managed to get basically one of the last planes out, landed in LA, and then bounced through to Sydney. They said in New York, friends had become strangers and strangers had become threats. And the Sesame Street existence of walking down, the row of brownstones to go to the corner store was now like a dash, a terrifying dash and back, because you just didn't know what was going to happen on the streets. They got to LA and they were being told to bunch up in the queues to get through. It just seemed like it was on a completely different level there. And then they got to Sydney, and this is, I don't know when they'd landed in Sydney, maybe a week ago or so. Sydney was like, oh, is there a problem? Anyway, so they were sort of given the recorded message sort of droning on, you need to go self-isolate now, and then out the front door and off you go. And they said it was mind-blowing, the difference between those 3 cities just, a week or 2 weeks ago. I was thinking exactly the same thing when you were saying that, Scott. I know I'm in an incredibly privileged bubble. I have a house with a roof. I have some money in the bank. I've got, working capital in the bank to look after the team for a very long time yet. And I'm disconnected from people that have been laid off with, I heard the other day, it was one of the scooter companies in the States, Bird Scooter, I think, in my humble opinion, allegedly, they laid off 400 people with a recorded Zoom message.
Wow. That's crazy.
Unbelievable, isn't it? It really is unbelievable.
Shocking.
But I think also, like, we're going back 3 weeks when, and it was almost within a 2-day time. I remember I messaged Dee on the Thursday the 12th. I said, I'm gonna take the Adelaide guys. I'm gonna get everyone working from home. They're catching public transport. And at this stage, it wasn't really. It was literally the Saturday that Dee and I were both like, we've got to start planning for the worst here. And we basically spent the next 3 days prepping for that and running scenarios and this and that, the other. But Mike, you were saying your wife's Italian. We just had really close family friends that live just outside of Florence. And they were, got back a couple of weeks ago and were messaging us the same. So I was similar to you, I think, getting that insight as to what was happening on the ground over there. And they were just saying how bad it was, and that sort of was probably what also triggered a lot for me in terms of what was really happening. Hearing that from people directly that we knew over there, that really changed my perspective. And then starting to see the flow-on effect of the US, everything starting crashing, and I think it got a lot more real. But it was just interesting how it happened, like the mindset shift for me within almost 24 hours from going, this is kind of bad, to shit, this is some really, really serious stuff. It was interesting thinking back and looking on that.
But you reminded me of a conversation we had while we were watching a talk at the Digital Marketers Australia. We were talking because at that time Wuhan had just basically put in their first real sort of lockdown orders, and we were talking about our client couldn't get product, and I think we were sort of saying, yeah, it's going to get worse, and I think that was probably the end of the conversation. And similar to Scott, it would have been, for me, the big thing is when the North American sports leagues got shut down. That's when it was like, okay, this is serious, because they're going to be, they're trying to protect their multi-million-dollar assets. probably $1 billion assets and that kind of stuff. And literally it was we had a meeting on the Monday morning with the management team. And it was just like, oh, well, we're going to listen to what the government says. And then the next day I just looked at the math about the rates in Australia, and they were just a third every day increasing. I thought, no, maybe we'll just, what do you think if we just made everybody go home? And I think we were all just waiting for somebody to mention that. And it was just, yeah, gone. So that day everybody left. And it was, I think we might have been a little bit late, to be honest. It was one of those things where, it was, I think we're all thinking about it, but nobody really wanted to be the first one to say it. So
I think that's really, really easy to say in hindsight. Like I say, I wasn't here then, because that's how it seemed like 3 weeks ago. I was, got invited to this last minute mountain biking trip. I'm like, yeah, sounds awesome. Like, yes, the world's changing, but it's not dire. And then by the time I got back, I was landing in a totally different world.
Yeah, and I think, again, I think that shift happened so quickly, because I remember turning around to the guys on the Thursday afternoon, and I can't even remember why and what triggered it, because I hadn't even thought about it the day before. And I said, well, I think we might work from home. And two of the guys are just like, well, why? But literally by the Monday, everyone was like, okay, yeah, this is probably a good idea. So
there's an office of architects just across from us on the same street, and they're still all in there today. It beggars belief. I remember the thing I was going to say before. What I love about this, I've got something that really pisses me off, which I'll do very quickly first, which is people, particularly in certain leadership positions around the world, are talking about this as a stock market crisis, an economic crisis first. It's a health crisis and a human crisis first, and we should not be putting any decisions. I mean, yes, we all need to get through it economically. We need our businesses to survive, but 1, 2, and 3 is looking after people, I think, right now. But what I love about this is that we have completely changed the definition of what an essential person in society is, what an essential worker is. It's not celebrities and football players and news anchors. It's hospital workers and truck drivers and shelf stackers and bloody nurses are just, and doctors, but and everybody in healthcare, all the carers, just bloody heroes. I cannot imagine coming out of retirement, putting your hand up and saying, yep, I'm coming back in, going into that environment, having to make those impossible decisions, particularly in Italy and France and Spain right now, and then going home to your family every night after a 12-hour shift, hopefully find some food, fall into bed, go back and do it again. That blows my mind that people are doing that. They're incredible.
Yeah, definitely the heroes on the front line. It's I hadn't even thought about that side, but it's absolutely true. I think I haven't thought about anyone or followed anyone famous or anything like that at all. It hasn't been in my mind. It's been, but the appreciation you have for the people who are actually out there and saving lives at the moment and doing that side. But then it's hard to completely get rid of some of the negative and some of the commentary around, and the way there was a story about a nurse coming out and someone assaulting her because she was spreading the disease last week in a car park in Australia. There's just still some really odd people out there doing some strange things at a time when it's really unnecessary. But I think the positive has far outweighed the negative, that's for sure.
I talk to Nat about this all the time, and every night almost, and it's a very interesting phenomenon where it takes, and there have been so many people talking about an upcoming pandemic for the past 10 years, very publicly, Bill Gates being one of them in a TED Talk in 2015. And it's situations like these that really showcase the best and worst of humanity at the very same time. Welcome, by the way, everyone watching to the e-commerce and agency supposedly conversation. And here we are getting philosophical and in certain ways anthropological as well. As we promised the crowds, we are going to open up to Q&A. We've got just one come through from Tamara that I'd like to pose to, I guess, Scott as well as Mike. Mike, we'll let you hit it first. What will you change in your agency that has come from this situation that would never be the same again?
That's a really interesting question, Tamara, because we've always had pretty much everybody on the team works from home one day a week. And just, flexibility has been one of our main things for a very long time, or a huge value for us, as well as transparency and generosity and empathy are all company values. So I feel like in some ways we were very well positioned for this. Like, it hasn't been, like Scott was saying before, it feels a bit like, what am I not seeing? I don't feel as disrupted as I thought I probably should be or would be by now. The team have been amazing and just picked everything up. And yep, there's distractions at home, and there's partners also working from home, and kids and pets and all of that stuff to deal with. But it really hasn't, in terms of from our clients' point of view, I don't think it's been a huge change. So what changes that will never be the same again? I honestly don't know. I mean, one of the reasons that I'm leasing this office is because I believe, if you'd asked me 3-4 months ago when I was signing this lease, I didn't want to buy an office because I didn't believe that in 20 years' time, we would all be sitting in an office every day. And I think one thing that comes out of this is a lot of the change that was going to happen in the next 10 years gets squashed into the next 6 months in terms of how businesses, particularly at the big end of town, how they think about business and work from home and travel and Zoom. By the way, buy the right Zoom stock if you're going to buy Zoom stock. ZN is Zoom Video. There's this company that's defunct on the stock market, and their ticker
Zoom
is
Technologies.
Zoom Technologies, and people have been, it's gone from about $2 to 20. It's back down to 10 now, but it went up 20% yesterday. That's a good one to short. I think Zoom's getting a bit expensive now. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't play one on TV. I don't know. For us in particular, at our agency, what changes forever? I don't know. Trevor might have some good ideas on that as well.
At this stage, I think it's too early to tell. I still feel like we're getting a lot of, from a client services perspective, a lot of our clients that have had to cancel, we're still kind of like, I think I've used the term palliative care before. It sort of feels like as we sort of ease them out and try to help them go away.
Great way to put it.
Yeah, it's, I think once that shakes loose, I think we've got a few things that we could probably tighten up in the systems, but I feel like the way that we operate, and I'd expect Dee and Scott, you guys are fairly similar, that this isn't too much of a disruption for our industry, to be honest. So at the moment, I can't think of anything that is jumping to mind about how we would change. But it is potentially having more efficient work from home protocols that we've sort of already by necessity created, and that may end up being sort of a carryover thing that we do when we do work from home. We might have that morning check-in even when we're all in the same room again. It could just be one of those things that will come through. It'll be interesting to see what does shake out. I wish I had a better answer for that, though.
I hear you.
I don't think structurally anything, I agree. I don't think from that side that there's a lot of changes. I think what this has done is really open people's eyes to what a black swan event looks like and how to manage your risk and set your business up to be able to withstand something like this. You see so many businesses, so many large companies, and all these companies that are laying people off left, right, and center. Bill Gates always kept 12 months of, I think, OPEX, CapEx on hand. He was totally risk averse in that. So he always wanted to make sure that they had cash or cash equivalents of up to 12 months of coverage at a minimum. Not many companies do that. From the start, you said earlier, Mike, that you guys had a lot of runway and the capital to withstand a sustained period like this. We're very much the same. We said it a few times. Dee and I never took cash out from the start. We pay ourselves a salary. And we always wanted to make sure that we had that cash coverage. Because I don't think, everyone, for a lot of people who are in business, all they've seen is from the GFC to now, which has just been a booming market across the globe. They haven't seen a downturn. They haven't experienced any recession, depression, market correction, anything. So I think everyone's just kind of bought into the idea that things are just going to be moving up and comfortable and stable forever. I think this should be a wake-up call for a lot of business owners that are in bad cash positions and having to offload staff, that you need to prepare for these situations and make sure that you, I'd say one area that it's probably brought to the forefront for us from a focus standpoint is diversifying lead streams. because if you know what my perspective at the moment, you know, we can't control what's happening in terms of people having to pause, logistical issues, supply chain, that side. We can't do anything about that. The only thing we can sort of get more control over is the pipeline to offset that. So if that's, you know, because there are a lot of businesses out there that we know we can help, and you guys as well. It's just, but I think relying on one or unreliable lead sources is where it can be really tricky for agencies. If you don't have control of that, that's where, you know, for a 2, 3, 4 month period that it could, you know, start really hurting. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think it's opening everyone's eyes to proper risk management. It's funny, I've been thinking about doing a course in AgencySavvy around the financial side of things, you know, the accounting side of things for quite a while. And I've just sort of, it's always been, you know, not important enough compared to everything else, and I haven't got around to it. And I'm having conversations, not just with agency owners, but with many small business owners. The balance sheet is something that they never look at. And a cash flow forecast, never done one. Like, everyone knows the P&L inside out. They're looking at that all the time. But balance sheet and the strength of a balance sheet never crossed their mind to think about that. And I think, yes, that is something that will change for a lot of businesses going forward. Yeah. So I love nerding out. I love nerding out with our CFO. I'm right into that side, so it's good. But it is, I think, making sure that, and even with a lot of our clients, with a lot of our e-com clients, that a lot of them don't understand their financials well enough. Managing risk, managing inventory flow. You know, I think there's, you know, a lot of area for people to level up on that side. And if now's a perfect time to highlight that and the need for that. Yeah.
So moving on to the next question. Boy, that opened a can of worms. Thanks, Tamara. Moving on to the next question. We got financial advisors coming out of the expertise. Got CPAs, self-appointed CPAs. But it is. I totally agree. I'll add my 2 cents here. I totally agree. Needing to stare is a wrong word, but understanding your financials is a key part and very core component of being a business owner and running a business. Choosing to put blinkers on that side is just choosing to opt out from a very core component of your business. You might as well just put your blinkers onto, say, the quality of your products from your manufacturers, for example. It's as core as that. It's just a different perspective, understanding that it is an intimidating piece if you're not well versed in numbers, but now there are people that can help you with that. Or surround yourself with the people that can help you with that, especially in this moment. And the next thing is just, I agree with each of you. It really pulls into focus it really accelerates what gets pulled into focus right now, as opposed to something that was always on the back burner, never really got to it. Like, for example, an interview show with other experts to go on live, all of a sudden comes to the forefront because it matters. So moving on to the next question from Joanna. I'm sure we've all received enough business update emails and messages from companies informing about COVID-19. So what do we do to keep customers and audiences engaged during this time? Just pushing products right now does not feel right. This is coming from someone who is in the furniture, fittings, and architectural hardware industry, which comes back to the messaging thing. I think that the tone deaf, the fact that you still need to balance business as well as caring and compassion. Any thoughts there? Any Twitter science thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not the social media expert, so I'll go very quickly and then hand it over to the experts. But for me, it's just about being human. It's being more transparent, like Trevor was saying earlier. Like you were saying with the ASOS thing, you can just be the optimistic reporter and gather things and give people a bit of a laugh and a bit of a break from. I totally agree with you, Joanna. Like, now is not the time to be going, buy my shit. Like, that is exactly the wrong thing to do. But you can still have a conversation with your community. It's just a very different conversation than 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the game, is just making sure you're in the headspace of your customers. So if they're worried about something else, then yeah, you're right, don't show them stuff. But if like, I kind of think that if it's home fittings and things like that, I think a lot of people are going to be spending time at their house, and they are going to be looking, you know, like I see a lot of my home office and I go, wow, I'd love to change that. How do you sort of join that conversation? Not how do you start it, but how do you join the conversation, and where do you fit in it? I think is probably the way to think about that. if that's the right kind of home bidding business that you're in. But I think it is just, again, sort of appreciate what people are doing. Like, what is the behavior that they're doing? Are they sitting on the couch, or they've been laid off? You know, think like what's going through their head, and seeing if you can't just be part of that conversation, or show how you can continue that part of the conversation on your blog. So maybe that is sharing content about how people are like having Zoom lapses in meetings and stuff. Because that's one of the things I've noticed, is that my meetings with my clients have never been looser. They're they're all over the map. There's kids coming in, roosters, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, how can you be in that, and how can that affect your messaging, is I think probably the biggest conversation. And if it does come out that there's nothing you can do, then maybe the thing is just to be less salesy and just sort of show versus ask.
Yeah, I can put a really tangible example here. Nat, for example, my wife sent me three screenshots. One from a denim brand that just dropped the quarantine collection, which, yeah, I know. And then talk about tone deaf. And then they dropped a screenshot from David Jones and Meyer here in Australia, both big retailers. And the subtle differences between each one with the creative and the message. This is just on Instagram, and this is just a single organic post. One that was a kitchen shelf, just products, and you tap to shop, and the copy was very much angled around a very buy now type motif. And then you have the other, which was, and I'll let you guys do your homework and find out which one is which, viewers. And then the other was a picture of a child in the backyard running around and laughing. And then the copy was more around, now that in times like these, the people that matter the most, something around those lines. And caring about these people matters the most. And it still had product. It's just a very different way of presenting that. I think it's very important, or what I'm noticing is people are still buying. That's why our companies are still up and running. Consumers still need to buy. We still need to buy as individuals ourselves. I think Trevor, absolutely right. Just going into social and understanding what the zeitgeist of whatever demo is talking about and tapping into that to then be able to weave the message in there makes so much sense in a time like this.
And play the long game, right? Focus on relationships, not transactions. Like, we are all very aware of which brands we'll be doing more business with at the other end of this, and which we will never work with again because of the way that they will handle themselves through this. Trevor's got this great line of make them feel at the top of the funnel, and which will affect how they do. It's much more elegant than this, but make them feel at the top, to make them do at the bottom, or something like that. I think now's the time to focus on feelings and just put your arm around your community, come together, forget transactions. If they buy, they buy, but right now, how can you help them? The way you said it, Trevor, before, it just makes me think Robert Collier. Like, it's 60, 70-year-old stuff. Enter the conversation already in your customer's mind. It's just a very, very different conversation right now. It's just being very aware of what that is.
Most of my shtick is around old copywriter. Sorry.
Because it works.
It's good people to learn from.
I think it varies such like business to business too. There's the smaller businesses that, for example, just so reliant on Facebook as their revenue stream, and they're the type of, again, coming back to that risk management, diversification of channels. It's hard for businesses to just not look at Facebook at that revenue stream if that's what they need to stay alive. But for the businesses that I'd say are more established and more stable, I definitely agree. Transition the messaging, utilize those low CPMs at the moment, and maybe go to more building audience relationship lists, less direct response, and utilize that, because you can probably build those audiences a lot cheaper than you could have a month ago. So I think that's the opportunity. But yeah, I think the tough question is for those smaller businesses where Facebook is the lifeblood of the business at the moment. And are they set up to be able to withstand 2 months of not making a profit or making a loss to be able to take advantage of that? I think it's just something that's going to be sort of thought of on a business to business level. But the messaging part's key. Like it can still be done. Like I love that example with the kid and the messaging right that there was nothing mentioning the situation, but it was tapping into how people were feeling about the situation at the moment. So I think that's a really good example.
Absolutely. Just want to stay respectful of everyone's time. I'm going to open up with one final question to each of you. From Rodrigue, what opportunities do you guys see as digital marketers, very specific, for the coming 2 years? 2 years, man. Yeah, I know. Broad one. Have at it, fellas.
I don't know about the next 2 days. I guess, yeah. I think like it's probably, it depends what you want to get, but I think if you're looking at specific opportunities, I think trying to drill in, let's just for the sake of assumption that there's possibly a recession following this, I think looking at enduring products, take a bit out of Buffett's investment philosophy, just looking for enduring products that are stable and always in demand, and looking at those verticals. If you're not wanting to look as a marketer and stick within verticals that could be strong through an economic downturn, I guess I don't know whether that's an opportunity or just a lower risk play. I'm not sure, but yeah. Depends what you're wanting to do. Are you looking to market other people's products or build your own product? It's a pretty open-ended question. I think there's a few avenues that could go.
I think
you go, mate.
Yeah, just on that, Scott, my sister-in-law is an insolvency lawyer, so she's going to be okay for a little while. But I think this is also maybe even a time to reconsider niching down. If it's diversification of assets, it's same with your business. If you're just relying on one channel, there's other channels available, and I think that potentially if you are a digital marketer working in one specific niche, or niche if you're in the States, I think probably that's a big area to do is appreciate that you can transition information from one niche to another niche. Like I do a little bit of lead gen, and to be honest, the lead gen approach and the e-commerce approach, there's very few differences. It's just sort of understanding that there are going to be some differences, but the 80% of it is still the same. You still need to attract customers. You still need to have good creative. You still need to bring the site needs to do a certain job. I think probably diversification at this stage is probably the best thing you can do, because that just prepares you. You've got more platforms to leap from or more areas to land on.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of that as an agency. So I'm speaking to a bunch of B2B CEOs tomorrow, which is a virtual speaking gig, obviously now, but a speaking gig that I may have not taken in the past because the vast majority of our clients are B2C. But like Trevor says, it's the same game with a few tweaks and a few twists, but the knowledge that we all as digital marketers have right now is never been more needed. How many businesses are you seeing that are just scrambling to get online? 2 million people using Zoom. That was last month's numbers. I don't even know what the numbers are for March. Sorry, last month being February. It's only just April here in Australia. We have a ton of knowledge. So I think, education. A friend of mine who runs a very, very successful agency said he is so jealous of the fact, essentially, that we already have AgencySavvy set up, ready to increase. We've got the video studio built here in the new shiny office. It's been part of our game plan for a while, and we're well positioned to ramp that up. So yes, Rodriguez, there's a ton of people that need what you got right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a world where you don't know what next week looks like, and most people, there are such wildly swinging from one side to the other opinion pieces about the magnitude of economic impact that this is going to cause country by country. I think for the people that can, and this sounds like a cop-out to say it in this way, but for the people that can identify the opportunity, they'll identify the opportunity, because it's not set today let's keep moving over the next 2 years. Again, it's not peacetime. It's not let's keep chipping away and building towards this. It's more so what can we carve out right now, next 3 months, next 6 months, next year, and lightly project out further into the future. But in the coming 2 years, it's right now, it's really anyone's game. I know people that are moving into, I was speaking to a buddy of mine. He just launched a brand this year, or late last year, they were putting it together, and it's immunity supplements. So they're about to, they're about to get a feature on CNN and on a whole bunch of other very, very big media platforms next week. They're going to be okay. They come from the affiliate game, and that's where they were at. Meanwhile, a bunch of affiliates are jumping into all these types of offers where it is self-care, survivalist, et cetera, et cetera. So opportunities abound if you can carve it out. But I think like you can hear, I guess, from everyone in the panel, it's very much around diversification, understanding your knowledge transference. I guess that's what they call it in the world of neuroscience, and just keep nimble and keep moving. Now, I want to stay respectful of your time. We're already over. I really appreciate you guys' time here today with me. Now, just a parting statement from each of you. What, as it stands right now, what is your, let's give the audience like a parting piece of advice, how to steel themselves, how to prepare themselves to navigate today going into next week, next month.
All right. Step 1, look after your team. Step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, look after your team. Step 2, cash. It really, really focused on what you've got, what you need to spend it on, how do you triage that, how long is it going to last? Understand that financial position really well. And then step 3, question, as we've been saying all along, question all assumptions, all bets are off, eyes wide open, be on the lookout for opportunity, but only after you've looked after those first 2.
Yeah, like Mike says, I think that's all good. I think the other really key thing, especially just the reality of working from home and doing all that stuff, I would suggest something like gratitude. I think there's a billion different ways to sort of think about it, but just sort of think about what are the things that you're grateful for, and that really helps reduce any kind of stress. And if you're stressed, you're not making the right decisions. So yeah, big one for me is gratitude. I think there's a lot of people say that there's a right way to think about gratitude, but I think as long as you're going through that exercise, you're getting the benefits. So whatever works for you. There's something in Australia called the Gratitude Project, which is pretty good. It's a good thing to take a check into. But if you can kind of look at your situation, go, hey, what's working right now, and just appreciate it. I think that kind of mental behavior gets you a lot further in the game than a lot of people will give credit for.
Yeah, I think Mike and Trevor nailed it really. The only other thing I would say is just try and limit your exposure to a lot of the media and not get consumed by the fear side of things, so that you can think clearly and make good decisions. Like, good decisions right now is probably what's going to keep you afloat or help you actually move ahead and take advantage of the opportunities that are out there at the moment. And if things are going well, double down on those. Try and get as much cash into the business as you can right now, because as much as what we might think will happen in the next few weeks, we don't know. So if things are going well, things are performing well, I'd say like ramp things up and try and get that cash into the business as much as possible now. I know that almost sounds like, to our benefit or whatever, but it's for everyone, because you don't want to have that inventory sitting on the floor for months as dead capital, and you're not going to know how it performs after. So I just take advantage of that if things are going well. Worst case, you're just making more money. So yeah.
Absolutely. Such great advice. Practice the gratitude, have compassion, have empathy with your team, have empathy with your brand messaging, have empathy with your clients. This is your customers. This is the #1 time to be able to do that. And absolutely cash. Those are really, really great takeaways. That effectively ends episode #2. I really appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate each of you for being on episode #2. Episode #3 is going to come next week. The recording of this is going to be up on YouTube as well as on Facebook with show notes as well. So make sure you catch the recording. And if you liked watching our guests here, please remember to like the show, share the episode, tell your friends all about it, tag a friend. Appreciate everyone. See you next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for putting it together.